This is the beginning of a soul song recording by the great pianist Eric Deutsch. Maybe we will find time at the end of this flow to listen to that entire song that Eric created in response to astro harmony notes I made for this Taurus solar eclipse that is on your screen. But maybe I should show you a place where you can go to hear not only that song of the soul, but the other 12 new moon songs for this year called 2022 on this calendar that most of us have been compelled to use at geminibrett.com/2022 moon songs. You will be redirected to Eric's Bandcamp page, where you can listen to each of these 2022 new moon songs. And if you donate $7 or more by clicking here, buy digital album, you will, when you download it in the zip file, have all of these songs, plus my astrology notes, which are 40 pages long or something like that. So head over there if you would like to play. Well, let's get into this chart, friends. Not only this chart, but also into this one, for we are in the eclipse cauldron. We are between eclipses as I record this on May 5th, 2022 on Cinco de Mayo. I'll show you today's chart because a very powerful thing happens at this time of the year, every year, and perhaps especially at this one. But here on the inner wheel, we're looking at the Taurus solar eclipse, a Taurus new moon, close enough to the nodes for some shadow play to go down. It was seen very south on Earth at the kind of tip of Argentina. So some very beautiful images of this partial solar eclipse. And then we'll have a total lunar eclipse. It's going to be visible where I live here in California. We won't see the entirety of the eclipse event. We will see here in California the moon rising while it's already eclipsed and then moving into totality. So this is my local experience, or will be my local experience of it. This degree is very close to this place of the ecliptic or the zodiac that hosts the royal star Antares, so that will be a thing to watch for, Aldebaran setting. But let me change this chart so it reflects more of a kind of houseless or locationless perspective, Earth zodiac, if you will, the zero Aries wheel. So because we want to act locally, but think globally, right? So what is a Scorpio lunar eclipse? That's a question that applies to our entire Earth. What is a Taurus solar eclipse? The question that applies to our entire Earth. Right? How can we work with these phenomena? And are you feeling it? What are eclipses about? I want to, before I dive into that a little bit, just show you today, May 5th, 2022, Cinco de Mayo, right? Like a very important thing happens at this date or around this date each year, depending on where we are in the weird leap year structure of the Gregorian calendar. And it's that the sun reaches 15 degrees tropical Taurus. Now that point is halfway in between zero Aries, where we experience March equinox, right? And zero Cancer, where we experience June solstice, yeah? Or I prefer to just say Aries equinox or East equinox, because this is the east point from the center of Earth where we measure astrology, and North solstice for Cancer, or Cancer solstice. So anyway, exactly between those 2 points is 15 Taurus, right? So this is the cross quarter. The ceremonies often on May 1st, May Day or Beltane. I've heard it pronounced in better ways that I cannot repeat. But, in the Northern Hemisphere, obviously, this is the middle of spring. In the Southern Hemisphere, the middle of autumn, when the nature of the season is kind of fully fixed in. So north of the equator, I will remind you that roses need our noses. And south of the equator, I will remind you to fall like the leaves, for there is something when we leave them on the ground that allows for better composting for the seeds, the leaves and the flowers and the fruits to come around next year. So there's a very special thing about this particular Taurus cross-quarter event, the sun at 15 Taurus. I mean, it's literally happening in this moment that I'm sharing with you, or happened 10 arc minutes of solar travel before this, is that, as you can see, the sun is conjoined Uranus. So how often can that happen, you ask? What a great question. What a great question that went. And let's get more precise here. Let's put the sun at 15 Taurus. There we go. May 5th, 2022, 5:25, 58 a.m. Pacific time. All right. The sun at 15 degrees tropical Taurus, which is, that is a time that applies to the entire Earth. Yeah. This 5:25 thing on the clock is not. But 15 Taurus is an annual event, and it happened this year only 12 arc minutes, right? It's a fifth of a degree from Uranus. So how often would that happen? Well, let's play before we get into the eclipse mysteries, because certainly Uranus is part of this, with some astronomy. Astronomy is the measurable side of the heavenly happenings, and having an intimate understanding of the measurable will help us have a more intimate understanding, perhaps, or certainly expression of the immeasurable, the correspondences. Our sacred science of astrology is the rainbow bridge in between. So we find that the synodic period of Uranus, thanks to NASA, maybe, NSSDC, so NASA anyway, 369.66 days, right? So in other words, 369 days, or a year and about 4 days, are going to go down between this and the next time sun conjoins Uranus. Okay, well, that means this plus 4.5 days is going to put the sun at 19 Taurus next time they conjoin. Yeah, let's just take a peek at that and confirm that that is true. So thanks to Astro Gold software, it's pretty easy for me to push the buttons that say sun conjoined Uranus. And we find, there you go, 19 Taurus next time, right? So after the cross-quarter event. The next one from there, another 5 degrees along or 4 degrees along, 23, 27 for the next, right? Coming back to now, where we get this so close to 15 to the cross-quarter. We can go back before then, last year. We see it at 10:40. Which is interesting, right? That was on April 30th, and this year of 2022, that's where the eclipse is, right? So we just had an eclipse on April 30th, 2022, 1:28 p.m. Pacific time, which means for some of y'all on Earth, it was on May 1st, right? In your calendar. But a global time is sun at 10:28 Taurus, and the moon happened to meet the sun on that date and that time, and close enough to Rahu, the north lunar node, for this to be an eclipse. And you can see Uranus is playing a specific part at this time. So let's journey into what that might mean energetically. Just want to say, there's a couple things that we've already discovered, I believe, or let me, I guess, give the punchline, around this cross-quarter event of 2022, the sun at 15 Taurus, right with Uranus. And in 2021, about 4 degrees earlier, where the sun and Uranus met at that 11th degree of Taurus, that's 10 and change. I mean, so close to where this eclipse aligned just, days ago. All right, so what does it mean? What should we do about it? We're going to kind of get back to that maybe in there. I just wanted to plant the seed, and also just say that this is a very kind of unique event in this moment to have a cross quarter aligned with Uranus right? If the Uranus cycle was a year, it would happen every year, but it's not a year, it's 369 days. And so the Sun-Uranus conjunctions will, as we saw, slowly move forward through the zodiac. If it's, as we're seeing, about 4 degrees per year, well, 360 divided by 4 would be like 90 years to go all the way around. It's more than 4 degrees. The Uranus orbit is 84 years, right? So it's a very unique experience to have Uranus in Taurus. Won't happen again for almost 80 years. And to have a cross-quarter alignment to Uranus. Most thing I want to say, I think that's most important, is that this is really quite rare. And we'll look at this involvement with Mars, okay? But I think Uranus and Taurus is saying a whole lot about our experience at this time which has been quite sudden, surprising, chaotic, perhaps accidental. And, you know, how are these other planets contributing? And what is that kind of Uranian energetic added to this Taurus solar eclipse asking of us? Yeah, or let's say it this way, since this aligned 5 days ago now, how has it been happening for you? How do you work with eclipses? What are eclipses? So now I guess we can retrograde back to the beginning of the thing. I want to go way back to the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, which begin, "'Tis true without lying, certain and most true, that which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracles of one only thing." And end with, "Hence I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having the 3 parts of the philosophy of the whole world. That which I have said of the operation of the sun is accomplished and ended." Now, there's so much available for our journeys therein. I just want to share for this quick transmission on Eclipse Portal, Eclipse philosophy or spirit, or I guess, let's face it, Eclipse religion, that I think this sacred text from Hermes has so much to say, that these 3 parts of the philosophy of the whole world, sometimes known as spirit, soul, and matter, circle, crescent, and cross, for me, are represented astronomically in our incarnated experience as sun, moon, and earth. In the tablet we hear, "Oh, the father of creation of the whole world is here. Its force is entire, if it be converted to earth. Separate thou the fire and the earth sweetly and with great ingenuity." Right? It ascends to the heavens, and again it descends to the earth, achieving the force of things superior and inferior. By this means, the whole world was created, and such amazing cryptic alchemical recipes. There's a lot of astronomy here. For example, it ascends to the heavens and again descends to the earth, right? Achieving the force of things superior and inferior, which does not mean better than or less than. It means above and below. And why do I wave my arm as a wave as I say this? Because if we think about the moon's course about our planet, or our mutual dance of moon and earth every month, how we are experiencing the travel of the moon is snaking above and below the zodiac or the ecliptic plane, the path of the sun through our sky, every month like this, and crossing from the south to the north at the north lunar node Rahu, and from the north to the south lunar node Ketu, right? So every month the moon snakes above and below the path of the sun. We used to call these ascending nodes and descending nodes, but I'm sure, and I'm not sure, but I imagine that when astronomers first kind of sailed south from the northern hemisphere and realized that for southern hemisphere observers, the moon's coming down to the ground at the north node and up to the heavens at the south node. which is completely opposite to the experience for observers north of Earth's equator, where the north node is the ascending node, where the moon crosses from the Earth towards the heavens, crosses the path of the sun, passes the ecliptic, okay? And it's the descending node of the south node. So there's this interesting opposition in the movement of the moon in respect to the path of the sun when viewed from northern versus southern hemisphere. There is something, however, very importantly universal here, which is found in the truth that our entire planet, because the sun, our entire solar system, is moving through space relatively, or generally speaking, in the direction that we on Earth call north, okay? Like literally, the Earth is moving towards our North Pole. Not exactly, but very close. At other times in the precessional, the great year, very much exactly so. But we will always be, it would seem, though we probably haven't been measuring for long enough to truly know that we are moving from the south to the north through space. Why does that matter? Well, what I will say is that this is an astronomical agreement, which is with what is typically taught by modern astrologers, and it's a very modern concept actually, that north node is like the future and south node is like the past. Because literally when we see the moon cross her north node, or any planet cross its north node, all planets have nodes. When we see a planet cross its north node, it's literally crossing the ecliptic in the direction that we as a planet and we as a solar system are moving, right? It's literally we are witnessing this thing move towards the direction that we are going. And when we see a planet cross its south node, we see it moving towards the direction of space in a sense that we are coming from. So, you know, I could have just said, look, the north node is the future, the south node is the past. Everybody knows that. Get in a time machine and tell that to William Lilly, or, you know, go a little bit further back in time and tell that to Al Biruni, or go tell that to Vedius Valens, and you'll probably get laughed at. This is a very new concept, but we are discovering many new truths astronomically that I think confirm our astrology and also allow us to expand, change. So I personally, if you know my work, you know that I really love to express the astronomy that's behind these delineations that we know, because I am sure that when we renature our astrology, we will remember the roots of the rules and the proofs of the equations we use. I had a really hard time with the truth that the nodes function observationally in opposite ways, as the seasons, of course, are opposite from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere experience. And that actually difficulty that I was having with delineating the nodes based upon a locational point of view is what led me to the apex of the sun's way. And that's a place I advise you to go play if you want to learn a little bit more about how the Earth is moving through local space, how we know about this, which actually gets back to the time of William Herschel, who is best known for discovering Uranus, right? This is a very amazing discovery that was made. So if we treat North Node future, South Node past, what is it to have a North Node solar eclipse in the sign of Taurus and with Uranus? The sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. Another one of the 14 rubrics from Hermes' Emerald Tablet. The sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. Now, a friend of mine, a teacher of mine, Gary Caton, sees the elements expressed in this rubric: sun, fire, moon, water, wind, air, earth, You guessed it, earth, right? The sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. And we speak about, as the rubrics there move into this idea of the father of the whole world is here, right? But he just told us the sun is the father, the sun is here. And its force is entire if it be converted into earth. Okay, well, how do you do that? And Hermes tells us to separate thou the subtle from the gross, sweetly and with great ingenuity. The fire from the earth, right? So alchemically speaking, energetically speaking, physically speaking, the fire is the most volatile and the least dense of the elements in the earth, the most solid, right? And, the fire, in a sense, maybe the plasma, which it seems the sun is composed, where here on earth we have these things that we can bang our hands against and make noise, or, at least we are told by our senses. We know, at least theoretically, that this tea lid is actually just a bunch of things jumping around at high vibration, right? I want to share a lot of these themes today in kind of a Uranian context like that. Energy. The earth is the most fixed of these elemental worlds. And, for us to make move in the volatile places, it's a lot easier. Right? We could say dreams are much less fixed than waking reality, yeah? And maybe you have had experiences, as I have, to have a lucid dream experience, right? Where you can move around, maybe even fly, do things, That's what it is, to be in a space of less fixicity. But here in this world, it's hard to just make moves like that, right? Like, I'm not going to open up this window and try to fly as I might in a dream if I realized I was dreaming. How can we bring these worlds together? And when we hear Hermes say, separate the fire and the earth, why would we? Well, because probably we're asked to recombine them, right? Because this is one of the key alchemical methods: solvate, coagula, dissolve and coagulate, separate and bring back together. So separate the fire and the earth. Separate, if you will, the spirit and the matter, right? Purify the spirit, purify the matter, purify the body, purify the worldly living, right? And then bring them back together. I mean, might this not be the entire purpose of an incarnated experience? And I think it's very strong in the messages and the invitations and perhaps even the commands or the necessities of this current eclipse cauldron that we are passing through. The sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. The only time I have yet been able to experience a total solar eclipse with my eyes was in 2017 in August, the so-called Great American Solar Eclipse, where I was with a team of fellow star seekers in Idaho, and we got to experience that amazement of totality. I was reflecting on this the other day during the recent Taurus solar eclipse, where I was laying with another group of amazing beings, watching the sun through the leaves of a tree, knowing that somewhere on Earth, a bit of that sun was being occulted by the moon, or maybe Rahu taking a bite out of that sun, but not being able to swallow it whole. That swallowing happens only at the time when the eclipse is total. And one thing I was amazed to see, first of all, we were like laying on grass, beautifully relaxed, tuning into our intentions for this powerful portal, this eclipse cauldron. And it felt very Tauresian in just the beauty of the moment and the song of the birds in the trees. And I was interested to see what I thought I would see, which is the birds seemed to go about standard daily business. And why is that interesting? Because during the total solar eclipse, when we have a 360-degree twilight, it's the strangest thing. As the moon occults the sun, it gets cold, and the birds do their night thing. They go quiet. They head to nest. And this is true for most animals of Earth at the time of the eclipse. Oh, including those who choose to follow, the superstitious suggestions of many, teachers throughout time in regards to eclipses. Never watch, go somewhere and hide. Like go inside, maybe shut the blinds. It's like nighttime, right? So treat day in this energy of a solar eclipse as if it's night. And, maybe that's a short gift of the moon. It's amazing how, at the time of the solar eclipse, I was fortunate that I had heard about this, and so I brought a jacket, but it's amazing how cold it gets, right? Like the temperature drop is so rapid that it's in your bones. Frankly, next time I'll bring a bigger jacket. I was in August in Idaho. It was hot, but it got real cold for this minute and a half of totality that we experienced where we were on Earth at that time. My most interesting experience, and why I'm sharing this at all, is that we had climbed this hill in Idaho, and we were up above this valley, right? And you could just see that the deluge waters carved this thing out suddenly some time ago, and some kind of cataclysmic, rather Uranian experience that the geologists of our day will deny at all costs, because gradualism is the only way to push things like the Bible aside, right? Where, it's one of many, many, many global mythic traditions that teaches us of the great cataclysm that changed everything and maybe completely wiped our species out if it wasn't for cats like Noah and Fam, right? And the 2x2. And that kind of story shows up in different expressions around the world and many different traditions, which I'm sure you're aware of. And speaking about cataclysms is a rather Uranian thing too. Speaking about cataclysms on the planet, probably a rather Uranus or Taurinus eclipse expression. And I will just ask this question of you to contemplate what in your life is either experiencing or is due for cataclysm. And perhaps how can we go into that necessity of change gladly and choose change before change chooses us, to make the process less terrifying? How much of this is in our control and how much of it is not? And how much of this is here to help loosen the grip when we resist change at all cost and need to align our minds only with forces of gradualism because sudden change is just too much? Well, this, my friends, is a time where sudden and gradual, or fire and earth, or subtle and gross, or volatile and fixed, are likely at odds. Because it is no debate, really, in the field of astrology that Taurus is like the most fixed sign. People use this word stubborn. I don't like it. But there is a mantra that I often employ at this time of year when anything finds its way swimming through or walking over the Taurus earth, which is release the rat race, tune into the grace of Gaia's pace. And the roses need our noses. Now, the latter is a rather northern hemispheric thing to say, but let me speak about something that we all globally experience with the sun or any planet moving through the sign of Taurus. And it's a wonderful time to speak about this at this cross-quarter time. The rudder. Every day, the zodiac rudders north and south across the cardinal directions. The rise in the east, the rest in the west. Yeah? But Taurus rises north of east. Scorpio rises south of east. Taurus sets north of west. Scorpio sets south of west every day. As the signs rise, reach, rest, and root, we see that the ascendant rudders against the cardinal directions from the northern extreme or solstice to the southern extreme, the tropics, the tropicos, which means turn around. Now we can really tune into this experience through the light if we follow the sun's dance on either the eastern horizon at sunrise throughout the course of the year or the western horizon at sunset throughout the course of the year. Because the sun currently, for all of us, whether you live northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere, will be seen day by day moving north on the horizon towards its northern extreme, which is the tropic turnaround, tropicos of Cancer, where the sun will then stop. The sun stops, that's solstice, turn around and start moving south for 6 months. Now, as the sun moves north, that means it's getting closer to we northern hemisphere beings. We're getting closer to the height of the light. We're getting closer to summer solstice, 0 Cancer. As the sun moves north, for southern hemisphere beings, it's getting further away from you, right? It's moving towards the depth of that light. It's moving towards your winter solstice, 0 Cancer. Either way, for all of us, the sun is now moving on either the eastern horizon at rise or the western horizon at rest. It's moving north, right? It's moving from its southern extreme, the Tropic of Capricorn, to its northern extreme, the Tropic of Cancer. When the sun ingresses tropical Cancer, it shines directly above the Tropic of Cancer. The tropical zodiac, contrary to popular ignorant opinion, is an amazingly astronomical device. It's not aligned to the constellations, and therefore many say it is not, but they have just not tuned in to tropical, which is earthly astronomy. And here's a truth of tropical Taurus that does not apply to the constellation of the Bull, which is it is the sign, okay, in between the east-west crossing, the equinoxes, right? That's the sun moving into 0 Aries, and the northern extreme, 0 Cancer. And importantly, if you wave your arms with me like this, you will find, sorry, plant, that at our tropicos, we stop and turn around. That means literally we're stopped. Where are we moving most quickly as the rudder swings back and forth against the cardinal directions, east and west, to its northern and southern extremes, right? When we have the northeast extreme, we also have the southwest extreme. You feel that? The ascendant and the descendant, if you will always be opposite one another in this great rudder. We're moving quickest when we're at the cardinal directions, east and west. Feel that? It's just that exercise like where you get up and you run in one direction, you stop and you turn around and run back, or the swimmer's kick turn, right? Where we're literally stopped. We have to change directions. Kind of seems like a good time to bring in Mercury Retrograde, but let's get back to that. Where we are fastest is in the middle of the lane, right? Between the kick turns, or in the middle of our sprint, between stopping and turning around, or in the middle here, between the solstices, which are the equinoxes. And this brings in a very important distinction that can be expressed through pairs of the 4 fixed signs. What are the 4 fixed signs? They are the middle of the seasons, the way that most of us play with seasons today, where they either begin with equinox or begin with solstice. There is a significant difference between the fixed signs where the nature of the season is fully fixed in that exist between solstice and equinox. Okay, those are Aquarius and Leo. Aquarius in the middle of December or south solstice, and March or east equinox, and Leo halfway between Cancer or north solstice and Libra or west equinox. Where do those directions come from? Long story, but maybe for now you'll just take my take my word that the tropical zodiac is a directional device. All the signs have global directions from the heart of our planet, where we are all one and where we measure astrology from. And I am choking on tea. Between solstice and equinox, right? Between these stopping points, we are speeding up until we get to our fastest speed. That's at the equinoxes, right? And this, again, can be experienced by watching the sun rising on the horizon, where it's moving north and south, south for 6 months and then north for 6 months. I highly suggest it. Or watching the sun on the western horizon at sunset, a little bit easier to do for most of us, moving north for 6 months until 0 Cancer, and then south for 6 months at 0 Capricorn. The solstices, the sun stops. It moves very slowly. It has to pick up speed. At the equinox points, it's moving most quickly, okay? So between south solstice, 0 Capricorn, and east equinox, which is 0 Aries, the sun is picking up speed. So Aquarius helps the sun. It's like getting faster, okay? Between that east equinox, 0 Aries, and the next stopping point, solstice, 0 Cancer, the sun is slowing down. See, Taurus slows it down, all right? And then the sun turns around, 0 Cancer, and starts picking up speed until it's fastest again at equinox, in this case, 0 tropical Libra. So you can see between 0 Cancer and 0 Libra, the middle there is 15 Leo, faster. And then Scorpio slowing us down, okay? So this, for me, is a very important truth. The middle of the winter, the middle of the spring, or sorry, the middle of the winter, the middle of the summer, okay? And this is like universal. So whether you're northern or southern, where the northern summer is the southern winter and vice versa, right? We are speeding up as if we're trying to get away from the extremes. You know, it's too hot, it's too cold. Whereas in the spring and the fall, we're trying to slow it down. Don't get too hot. You know, let me smell these flowers. Don't get too cold. Let me push winter away just for some time still. Let me have time for the final harvest, whatever it may be. Do you feel? This is why, by the way, my school is called the School of Earth Astrology. Because when we remember the roots of the astrological rules and the proofs of the astrological equations we use by renaturing our astrology, we will now have a heavenly experience from the ground up. The sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. So my experience in Idaho during that total solar eclipse was rather amazing. It was a Leo solar eclipse, August. I think it was 21st of 2017. Yeah, the eclipse was Regulus, the heart of the lion, just as the sun was about to leave the tropical sign of Leo and make its way into Virgo. It's a very late Leo solar eclipse. And in that ancient kind of river valley, where no water, I don't believe, has run for a long time, except probably after significant rains, but I'm sure at one point hosted the flood, or was actually like forged, created by the great flood, the deluge, I'm sure. There was, during the moment of the eclipse when everything got cold and I was witnessing from Earth and within an incarnated body, this engagement of sun and the moon. Well, the wind was the most fascinating thing for me. It's as if I heard it screaming through this ancient valley and charging up the hill to where I had climbed and just entering my heart with a great force that I'm still rather perplexed by. Some interesting thoughts went through my mind, which reflects personal work that I was called to at the time and still am invited to grow through. But I'll never forget, I don't know if this will be my experience during every eclipse or if it has something to do with the land where I was, but I will know that eclipse is a time of experience, the mystery of the wind. It wasn't windy. It was a very still day, and I haven't actually asked others that I was with that day. Maybe this is me remembering retrograding back to that experience now. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to. It's probably inviting me to reach out to some of the amazing beings that I shared that experience with them to ask them if they too felt this strange spirit wind. But reflecting on that just yesterday encouraged me to not only share some feels about this coming and current eclipse with you, but also to share the story of the wind and to share this rubric from the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, that the sun is the father, the moon, the mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. Eclipses are great mysteries. Now, I can say that they are portals of accelerations. They are certainly dragon shadow work portals. They are not for the light of heart. They are things that you should probably seek to hide from if you don't seek growth, because they really, I think, provide accelerated opportunities for deep soul growth. I was asked yesterday in the Astrology school, and it's one of our study groups, of why do I keep saying soul growth attached to eclipses? Is it because the nodes are soul? For me, moon is soul. The sun is spirit. By that, I mean the sun is our local representative of the one only thing that ever was, is, and will be, the light. And that the moon is here to reflect that one only light in a unique way that will never repeat. And that for me is a soul. It's not some little piece of the one only thing of spirit. It is a reflection of spirit, but in a unique way. Recently educated by my friend Cameron Allen, and also through the writings of Saja Popham, in this truth of kind of spirit and soul in the plant alchemy, where essential oils, he looks for an oil to apply to his crown. They are, like the essence of a planet. They're the soul of a planet. They're what's so absolutely unique about a plant. I keep saying planet, but it would be that too, or a person or whatever. And thanks to a dear friend Sheridan, who I got to meet on Earth recently, wisdom of the earth, peppermint from India, perfecto. Actually, Cameron and I, in a recent discussion, which you can find on my YouTube page, we're speaking about this, and he used peppermint and lavender as examples, right? They're very different, mutually strong, but very different experiences in the essential oil of these plants, right? So that's like the essence or the soul of the plant. It's unique to the plant. However, if we do certain alchemical processes with either of those plants, peppermint and lavender, with any plant, we will find our way to ethyl alcohol, spirits, right? Something that they all share. And that, I think, is a very important distinction between spirit and soul, these words that are so subjective, or geometrically I'll say circle and crescent, or perhaps astronomically, or astrologically sun and moon, that the one, though it does move through the signs, the sun, well, that's only because Earth is moving. Our orbit, our annual journey, brings the sun through the signs of our hexagon, of our crystal. Okay, I'm getting a little too esoteric there, so let me stay with my feet here on the surface. It's Earth's movement that changes the sun in the zodiac, where the moon's movement changes where the moon is in our earthly reference. That's an important thing too. And while the sun stays quite consistent, I mean, truthfully, because the Earth is getting closest to the sun in January and furthest in July, the sun is in our sky slightly changing size and changing speed through our zodiac. But those are very difficult things to see. With the moon, not so much. The way that the moon changes size, we're coming into a super moon, blood moon, or total lunar eclipse. the way that the moon changes speed, the way that the moon, right, rises to the heaven and again descends to the earth. There's snakes above and below the path of the sun, which is why we have so many dragon and serpent stories with the lunar nodes, the dragon's head, the dragon's tail, with the eclipses, dragons eating the moon, Rahu, the decapitated demon dragon eating the sun, whatever it may be. We can very perceptively experience these with moon, and when we do, we don't go blind trying, right? When we stare at the sun, we will lose our sight. There is something about the one and only light that we are not meant to see. There is an old cosmology I love, which suggests that the stars are but holes in the veil that shields us from the one and only light that ever was, is, and will be. And the sun is the big one because it's the hole that we are closest to. So when I see sunlight, I try to remember I am experiencing one light. And that the moon, just as Diana delivered Apollo's birth on Earth, the moon's gig is to deliver sunlight to our earthly eyes in a unique way, which will never repeat. You will never actually see the same exact shape on the moon with the moon in the same exact place twice in your life, ever. I literally do not have to go beyond the Earth, Moon, Sun system, which for me in a chart is the sun and the moon and the horizon, the meridian, so your houses, but especially your ascendant, the rudder, the horoscopos, the hour marker. I don't have to get beyond the sun and the moon and the rising sign in your chart to show you that you are a unique being and it will never, ever repeat. Dig that. Okay, so back on track. What about this eclipse? Well, Taurus tends to be, and this is why I wanted to share this whole truth about Taurus and Scorpio alike, being signs that slow down, right, between the solstices and the equinoxes. No, between the equinoxes and the solstices. Whereas the other two fixed signs, Leo and Aquarius, are about speeding up. Now, interestingly, we see that Leo and Aquarius belong to this kind of up and out polarity, right? Air and fire signs, where Taurus and Scorpio, this down and in polarity of the earth and the water signs. Intriguing, because the up and the out and the air and the fire are more volatile. Right? I mean, you can witness this in their elemental expressions, whereas the earth and the water, the down and the in, are more fixed, especially the earth, and probably especially Taurus. Now, Capricorn might be able to stage a solid argument here just from the earthstronomical experience of the thing, because while Taurus is slowing this thing down, Capricorn is stopped. But it is in that true kind of cardinal expression where we begin from stopped, right? This is the birth of the sun. Sing a Christmas song, you know. That's an interesting thing to play with. In my own kind of personal experience of the transmissions of the earthly element through study with tree, see Capricorn as the trunk. And also the roots that drink deeply, right? The structure, the form of the being, the foundation of the tree, so it can reach its branches to the heavens, which it will not without the leaves that receive the light to feed the being. And for me, that eternal work, at least by day, is the Virgo realm. And I see Taurus as the fruit and the flower. It wants to be tasted and pollinated. This is necessary for the continuation of tree being. Now, but very importantly, within the fruit is the seed. Any fool can count the number of seeds in an apple. Not the wisest one can count the number of apples in a seed. There's something very important there, and I don't know how to express it in any way further than sharing those ancient words of wisdom. The sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth its nurse. Uranus, this planet of great change, this shocking planet, this planet that was discovered quite by accident, using this technology, this opportunity to expand our awareness beyond the limits of our senses. This planet that was discovered during Industrial Revolution, American Revolution, while the fires were being forged for the French Revolution. This revolutionary planet, this chaotic, accidental change agent, this planet that completely shattered the ancient cosmology. Earth, Moon, Mercury, Sun, Earth, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, stars, zodiac, God. Right now, that had been shattered with the heliocentric remembrance of the Copernican revolution, and thanks to the work of folks like Galileo to help push that through with observations through increasing technological advancement, yes? And of fearlessness, very importantly. So perhaps we needed a new reference plane of a sun-centered cosmology to allow for that last planet Saturn to release that title and for Uranus to be in this freaky way discovered. Can you imagine the resistance that would have happened there? I mean, I know many astrologers who are fond of the traditional approach, whether working with Hellenistic, Western astrology, as it's often called, or Jyotish, or many say Vedic Eastern astrology, who won't put Uranus on a chart. No Neptune, no Pluto, certainly no Chiron or Pholos, no Juno, no Pallas, no Eris, no Haumea, right? It is Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and that's enough using the old rules of the craft, okay, right? Shocking Uranus, change agent Uranus. Can you see why Uranus would, by the modern astrology, be designated in the sign of Taurus as a planet in its fall, exalted in Scorpio? Because though Scorpio, like Taurus, slows, somehow we also find in that fixed sign a devotion to death and rebirth, the snake that sheds its skin, the phoenix that rises from its ashes. But we cannot rise unless we burn. Or is that false? I mean, didn't the phoenix have wings already? Like, why don't you just fly? And I think at times in our lives we are ready to just fly, and that is okay. And we need to release the bypassing that is available or promoted by many who are demonizing bypassing by basically teaching this idea that if you're not rolling around in a puddle of your own goo, you're not doing the work. If you're not sobbing every day, you're not growing. Well, certainly there is times and place for the existential crisis, the death and rebirth, the journey into hell, right? The dark night of the soul. And from that place we can grow, we can find light, we can come back with that torch that we have discovered through necessity to survive the coldest hour of the night. But there are other times where we have been walking on our path of honor, where we have found ourselves, we have aligned ourselves to our calling, we have left the one or the ones who do not support our truth, and allow them to find those who love them for who they are, so we can also be loved for who we are. And we're doing our work in that way, and we can just stretch our wings and fly, and that's okay. And this isn't a linear process, right? It's a cyclical thing. The teachings of astrology are very powerful in helping us understand cyclical time. The nodes of the zodiac, the nodes of the moon, right, are where the moon's path crosses that of the sun, crosses the ecliptic or the heart of the zodiac, right? All planets have them. When we experience new moon, typically no shadow play for you because the moon is either above or below the sun from your point of view. It's only at these special times and from special places on Earth for solar eclipses and for lunar eclipses where it must be night to experience the moon passing through the shadow of Earth and turning blood red, a reminder that we must be incarnated in vessels with blood running through their veins to experience the truth that spirit and soul, sun and moon are the same size in our earthly skies. You have to be in a particular place on Earth, especially with solar eclipses, and the moon and the sun have to be close enough to these nodes, these crossing points. So generally speaking, where the nodes go, eclipses go. And we have 2 eclipse seasons every year. One where the sun is at the north node as it is now. So perhaps this is talking about our future. And one where the sun is at the south node as it will be October, November time, with the south node currently in Scorpio. We will have a lunar eclipse in November of this year, 2022, I guess they call it, where it's even more significantly aligned to Uranus than this eclipse of April 30th or May 1st, depending on where you sit aligned, right? So here we are, 11th degree of Taurus with Uranus. Now, less than an hour after this, Venus and Jupiter conjoined. Look at this. They're 2 arc minutes away, right? Very near Venus's exalted degree, which, by the way, is not this. It's 26 and change, is the 27th degree of Pisces, the degree of Venus's exaltation, where she is a most honored guest. But is this not close enough for you? Okay. The Mars sextile with this eclipse intrigues me, the strength of Pisces. I will say that Pisces is a place of highest dream and beauty, and also a place of greatest potential manipulation through collective delusion. And I think we've been experiencing deep Pisces problems in that regard of late. Perhaps at the hand of a very organized control system, suggests Saturn, squaring the lunar nodes in this way. But the sextile we get from Venus and Jupiter, and especially Uranus to that north node, the trine to the south node, is a place where we find release for this tension. Is your utopia not working out? Cool, we'll dream in a new one, go into the vision place and trust your body, dance your way through this, and tend to the earth. Separate thou the fire and the earth sweetly and with great ingenuity. But why? To recombine them. Is that what's not happening for you here? Why do we incarnate? And many would say to get back to source. Well, why did you come in the first place? But not to find through the separation from spirit. That is, it seems inherent to the incarnated experience, a remembrance, a devotional, a spiritual, a intentional reconnection. Yes? And sudden things in our lives will call us back. Sometimes those are very painful. We see deaths, right? We see awakenings to deceptions. We see a narrative that we have been told just completely unravel. And then it's hard to go back into the matrix bubble, if you will, right? This is a time like that. This eclipse with Uranus. There's a resistance because we want to stay with where we know we are not only safe, but comfortable. And that's not a wrong thing or a wrong, mouth to feed. But if we will allow ourselves to consider the potential turbulence, and without necessarily digging a bunker to go and hide in from these times of eclipse on the earth, if we will learn to put our hands in the soil once again, to grow our own food, to find some independence and reconnection in the process, right? So you might start gardening out of fear and learn gardening because of love. There's a calling here for Taurus. You might never even know that shiny light that sometimes appears in the West is a planet until you come to astrology. That's how it was for me. Nobody showed me a planet in the sky. But at one point I realized these charts aren't just maps of the soul, they're maps of the sky too. And if I could do this thing in my incarnated experience, Earth, I would have more of a merging with the spiritual force. If I could understand the astronomy, I can learn more about the correspondences. This happens for me more and more and more, and I choose to share that love. Suddenness on Earth, the comet that came, that blew us up, that almost completely destroyed our species. When Uranus entered Taurus, we received for the first time some evidence of that comet's crater in Greenland. And perhaps that's a miss, but I don't think so. And if we could remember what happened to our entire species, we might have some more compassionate understanding for the results, which looks like this thing called patriarchy, which looks like this thing called systems of control, the unwanted shepherds. You can see patriarchy as the evil king, or perhaps you'll take a view where you see that one as the sobbing boy child who was never loved. We have options here, and there's Pisces strength in this chart to remind us that compassion is key. And there's a lot of focus on this chart. However, this is a Taurus eclipse that says also have compassion for your own needs. How does that speak to you? Well, where the nodes go, the eclipses go, and the nodes retrograde through the zodiac at a rate of about 18.6 years, spending about 1.6 years in each sign. Eclipses don't happen right at the nodes. In fact, here's a good example. This is about as far away as a solar eclipse can be, about 12 degrees and a little bit from either north or south node a new moon meets to have a partial solar eclipse. For the lunar eclipses, it has a wider range, like about 18.5 degrees, interestingly, from either of the nodes for us to experience a partial lunar eclipse. And this one that's coming our way very soon in a theater called You is a rather total lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio. See some very important changes between these two times. Venus has made her way into Aries, so with Jupiter. Okay, let me make this a 0 Aries chart wheel. And I think that importance of these benefic lights leaving these signs of Pisces, where Jupiter traditionally is said to make a home and treat Venus there like an exalted guest, and now moving into the sign of Aries, helps remind us that these compassion keys to create the foundations for a greater collective will be found through doing our own personal work, and forced to do this by bringing our mind back to the personal needs and the needs of our intimate relations with others. Perhaps you saw the magical button I pushed, which is to find the date, June 3rd, when Mercury stations direct back here in the sign of Taurus, very close to where the sun will be at the time of the Scorpio lunar eclipse. You see, wheels within wheels. Now, where is the Taurus-Scorpio axis on your nativity? I'm Gemini rising, so Taurus is 12 and Scorpio 6. Right? If you're Taurus rising, 1-7. If you're Aries rising, 2-8, right? If you're Taurus rising, 1-7, we did that already. If you're Pisces rising in the 3rd and the 9th, yeah. We're not going to do that here today, but I think it's very important for us in the opportunity of Mercury retrograde. This is a very important one where Mercury's Cazimi will be in these early degrees of Gemini. We're asked to communicate our needs. Well, there's some very difficult things in doing so. Okay. One, you have to know what they are. And that's a very difficult thing for us to touch when we have been trained, and it's very alive in the signs of the time, to believe that receiving is taking. It is better to give than receive. Receiving is taking. Receiving is selfish, actually, is the hidden commandment therein. Oh, Taurus, the roses need our noses, right? So receiving is giving. Can you imagine how a rose must feel when you really breathe her fragrance and exalt the amazement of the rose? And oh my gosh, that thing, right? Like, what a wonderful gift to those who choose to bestow upon you love, but to receive that love with joy and gratitude. Receiving can be giving, but it's very difficult for us to offer gifts through allowing ourselves to receive, because we have been so trained to believe that receiving is taking, that receiving is selfish. Many of us have even lost our understanding of what we truly need. Many of us eat not what our bodies truly need, but, well, I don't, right? It's one of my issues I'm experiencing. And in fact, as a Gemini rising being, to have this Taurus solar eclipse where my South Node lives in my 12th, a place of self-sabotage and hidden things, right? Hidden enemies, including the ways that we can be enemies to ourselves because we don't know about it, right? Or sometimes it is. We don't take our own advice, but it's not necessarily that. We get into these habits. We know what we are doing is like perpetuating the difficulty that we're having with ourselves, but it's not because we're, aware of the issue. We can like diet that, but if we could get to the root of the thing, right? That's about knowing our needs, okay? So this Mercury retrograde during this time, I think, is so important because he says, like, collectively, hey, look at this madness that's been happening the last couple of years, the madness that's been happening since 2001. Tell me a month you've experienced since that time where there wasn't some crisis on your, green screen. Oh, sorry, did I say green? Anyway. Slowing down will allow us to accelerate in a new way. There's a very powerful truth of acceleration for soul growth that's available to us in eclipses. We can see this expressed by the many shapes we see in the crescents of the moon or the crescents of the sun during the course of the lunar or solar eclipse, respectively. We can see basically every phase that the moon makes during the course of the month in just hours of a lunar eclipse, or in just minutes of a solar eclipse when it is total. And by the way, those phases move in retrograde. They are backwards. It's an acceleration portal for soul growth if we are willing to look back. A metaphor I often use is you walk into a black lit room and suddenly you see some stains in your shirt that cannot be seen in daylight. So you leave the room and you're in daylight again, and now you know there's a stain there. Are you going to go clean it up? Or are you going to just walk around with that stain because other people can't see it anyway? Or can they? And the more you know about your stains, the more they are shown to the others. And that's actually a courageous revelation, right? So when we are looking into our own deficiencies and, again, our own needs, we are allowing ourselves to become us. We are there by creating a world where we can bring ourselves to the scene and find our we. It's a huge part of what's happening in the heavens as far as my ears can hear in this time, these last couple of years, where everything seems to be falling apart, where we are being asked to realign ourselves to our own dream While we are being asked by very loud voices here on earth to align to the one dream, the one vision, and if you don't do it the right way, then you are bad, and soon you won't be able to spend, $1 or a digital token or something like that if you don't comply. Very careful of that. It's the expression of the lack of personal dream, and that vehicle of giving is receiving, receiving is taken, is one that's been used to sever the individual from their personal legend. That's a need. Realigning to the food that fuels your personal journey. And I'm not just talking about that what goes in your mouth, but that what goes into your eyes and your ears and the many receptive devices of the incarnated vessel for spiritual growth. For this is why we incarnate into a place with the appearance of time and space, so we can grow through feeling, healing, knowing, and growing. Your individual growth is the growth of all that is. 3 crows just flew by. What do you need? Now, if you're Aries rising, I think, or if you're Libra rising, that particular question will be more aligned to your particular alignment to this eclipse season, this Taurus Scorpio eclipse season, because you will find the eclipses in your 2nd and 8th signs. It's only half of the maps, right? For me, again, Gemini on the rise, I'm looking 12th, 6th. And I think you can probably hear that in the way that I'm metaphorically expressing this eclipse. It's hard to take myself out of the picture even when I wish to, because I'd like to act locally but think globally and offer global suggestion. Regardless, we do see, speaking of globally, where the houses are irrelevant at the center of the earth, the houses are actually the signs. We do see this impetus of, at this time, of moving from the axis of seeking and truth and learning of Gemini and Sagittarius, retrograding into Taurus and Scorpio, of embodiment, of sensuality, of sexuality, of intimacy, of merging. But again, the merging is going to be much more beautiful if we understand what foods we personally need. Sometimes that just looks like I need space. Sometimes that looks like I need others who don't think I'm crazy, because I believe planets have energetic influence on our experience as Earthlings. It's a very amazing thing that these global and heavenly happenings can themselves express in as many ways as there are beings who are listening. And collectives, typically, who are not. Not only is it a very challenging thing for us to understand our own needs because of the programs that have been put in place, it is very difficult to express those needs to another or to the others because they speak a different language than you. So I'm not talking about Spanish or French or English, okay? You know this experience, you buy a gift for a lover, and you are so shocked that they do not receive it with great joy, because it would be the perfect gift for you to receive. But their wish, their need, their love language lives in a different world than yours. And so we realize that the golden rule is not true. It's not about doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's doing unto others how they would have them done unto them. But what is that? And we have to learn to listen to their language. And if we want to share our own needs, the difficulty, of course, is being courageous enough to know we have them and to receive the truth that receiving is not taking, but then to learn how to speak our needs in another language. So the Pisces energies, maybe suggest some telepathic expression, the Taurus energies, maybe some body language expression, very important. But Mercury retrograding from the Gemini air back into Taurus, into Gemini again, says, yes, tune in to the needs of your earth, right? But then offer that through voice. And if you want to find your way to communicate your needs to the other so that you can truly merge and so that you can truly show them that you are a safe place for them to share theirs, you just got to try. May these many, many words of astronomy and astrology and geometry and harmony and all things mysterious from my own personal journey through this weird, well, I'm just accepting it now as religion, honestly. Like, what is an eclipse? Let's end with this. An eclipse is that wind that allows the alignment of the three things, sun, moon, and earth, to come into the soul. And in some way, this is how souls ride into the world. Expect accidents, expect leaks, expect freaky things that are asking for stimulus and change, especially in the places where you might resist. Expect opportunities to go into places that have hidden from you, to completely find at the roots places where you can bring healing for feeling, for knowing, and growing. May this serve. Thank you very much for spending some time with me. Blessings to you through this power portal of accelerated evolution. And I will see you.